You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Hey listeners, let me let you in on a little secret. You don't have to stress about planning your class lessons, small groups, and individual sessions anymore. My school counseling membership program, Impact, is here to help. So, what do Impact members get? Monthly curriculum plans across all 3 tiers, SEL lessons, small groups, individual, and seasonal activities, step-by-step video implementation guides, bi-weekly Zoom coaching calls with me, and exclusive Facebook group community. This membership is designed for school counselors who want to deliver the best possible content to their students, but who also want to just press the easy button. You'll get access to monthly curriculum plans, resources, support, and community so you can deliver quality, engaging, life-changing counseling lessons to your kiddos. So what do you think? Are you ready to make an impact? Join today at stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/impact. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. So this week, I want to talk to you about how you can be a team player with parents. So if you're not really sure what I'm talking about, I encourage you to go back to last week's episode and really listen to where I talked about how you can be a team player with teachers. This whole month of November, I'm focusing on how you can collaborate with your stakeholders. So parents, teachers, administrators, and students. But this week, I want to talk about parents. So I have 6 strategies for you on how you can collaborate with and be a team player with parents. Okay, so let's dive right in. First up, over-communicate. So communication is key. And from any mistake that I've learned where parents have been mad at me, it was that I wasn't communicating enough. So, and I know you have a lot going on, and there are some demanding parents who want to know, like all the details. But you can set some systems in place to have clear expectations, but you do want to over-communicate, or at least communicate efficiently enough where they feel like their needs are being met, that they're being heard, and that you care and value their child. Because of course you do, but sometimes they forget that you have, 400 other students or something like that. So, over-communicate. How you can do this is I want you to think about it before services, during services, and after services. So, obviously, I'm not saying you need to talk to all of the parents of every kid at your school, even though you're delivering class lessons, but these will be the kids on your caseload, meaning those in your individual or group sessions. So before services start, send them a permission slip, give them a little phone call telling them, hey, check your kid's backpack. I sent home this permission slip, or attach the digital permission slip if you're doing this via email. But the phone call's a nice touch. Hey, I'm Rachel. I'm the school counselor at XYZ school. Be on the lookout for a permission slip in your child's backpack. I wanted to invite them to join us in this social skills group I'm doing. This is a wonderful opportunity for your child. They're going to learn X, Y, and Z. Blah, blah, blah. These are the times we would meet. Anyways, I'm just kind of like babbling a script of what I would say to the parents. But basically, you want to let them know what to expect of the services. That goes a lot better than sending home them finding a permission slip and saying, the counselor, I don't want you going to the counselor. Nothing's wrong with you. And ripping it up, because that happens. During services. So during counseling services, some parents trust you and they sign it and they're like, all right, we're good. Other parents are like, can you email me every week with an update of how my daughter's doing? And while we would love to do that, that's not always feasible in our calendar, right? But we do want to make them feel like they are, being kept in the loop with things within the realm of confidentiality, of course. So one easy way you can do this is if you're keeping a counseling log, you're likely writing a summary of what you did in your session. So again, we're keeping it confidential, but it could be something as simple as like, played a grief board game, or read social story on anger management, or, whatever the activity you did in the group or in the individual session. If you already have this digitally in your counseling log, simply copy paste it, shoot it in an email. It can be really informal, really brief. Hey, Mrs. Davis, I just wanted to give you an update on what we did in session today, or session this week. If you have any questions, you can reach out to me here. Now, that being said, parents will reach out, and some incessantly, especially maybe if you're like a private school or something like that, where they feel like they are owed the extra access I hope that came across okay. I've worked at public and private, so I do think there's a difference there when it comes to parental expectations. But you can be clear on your permission slip or in your email signature or somewhere. Say, oh, you can, contact me in these hours. You can expect a reply from me during these hours. Setting those expectations and boundaries. That way a parent's not emailing you at midnight, or even if they are, they're not expecting a reply at that time. And by all means, do not give out your personal phone number. Learn from my mistakes. So that's one way you can communicate during the services. And then after the services, you want to communicate by sharing any data, sharing any improvements or recommended next steps. So, oh, your child improved, so we think they are good to go back just to the general tier 1 intervention. Or, oh, we think your child needs to stay in group again. Or maybe they need a little more support through individual sessions. Or maybe they need a little more support. We recommend like an outside service. So those are some examples of how you can communicate with parents after services have ended. Now, you can also get them in on the data collection. So using like behavior surveys, send one out before services start and one at the completion of services, asking them for their opinion, survey them on their child's behavior and see how it has changed as a result of counseling services. Okay, number 2. Portray your services. I feel like I'm saying services a lot. Portray your services as positive and explain the benefits and explain your role. So this is kind of 3-part. A lot of times counseling has a negative connotation or a stigma attached to it. So you want to be sure to portray your services as positive and not like in a deceptive way. Like I say portray, but they are positive. We just sometimes need to explain it in a way that makes sense to someone who's not familiar with counseling services. So as I was kind of doing my, off the top of my head, mock permission slip chat earlier in the episode, I was saying like, this is a great opportunity for your child. This is what we're going to learn. And that's how I encourage you to present it. My permission slips used to say the words, your child was referred, and that was like a trigger statement. So I then changed it to like, your child was recommended, or we think this would be a great opportunity for your child. And it was a lot more well received. Like just simple semantics can go a long way there. And then explain the benefits. So you want to tell them like all the great things that will come of this. Oh, your child will learn strategies to do this. And when you sit down and look at it, like who wouldn't want to know? I mean, I know most adults would rather have more skills to deal with their anger or their grief or their social situations. So, explain the benefits of counseling. And you can always use like ask it infographics or something to explain your role as well, because we need to give some parents some grace. A lot of them, this may be their first child, so they haven't had a previous child in counseling services. And it's been a while since they were in school, right? So when they were in school, let's say they were in school like 10, 15, 20 years ago, maybe they didn't have a school counselor, or the role of the school counselor has changed quite a lot since they were in school, right? That's pretty likely. They're probably thinking like guidance counselor helping with, college or something. They're probably not thinking about the social emotional aspect. So you want to explain your role. It's exciting, explain it as if they know nothing. If they do already know something cool, it's just double clarification. But likely most parents I encounter aren't really sure on what we do. And with more clarity brings more appreciation and more trust, right? Okay, number 3, provide positive praise. So a lot of times, parents are hearing, like I said, counseling has a negative stigma, and parents are hearing like bad things about their kid. Oh, so-and-so's having anger problems or struggling with self-control, or, they can't regulate their emotions, or we're worried about their focus and attention, or they're hearing all these negative things. So it's really important to provide that positive praise. So if you're doing, check-ins throughout the time that you're seeing the students, like throughout the counseling services, do an email home, quick note home, or a phone call home and just say how awesome they've been doing as well. That can go a long way. Or just give a progress update like, oh, this week we really made some gains in counseling. They really seem to be, practicing the coping skills that we went over. Something like that. Provide that positive praise. Another way you can be a team player with parents and collaborate with them is to provide resources when you don't have positive praise. So sometimes the reality is things just aren't going great, and that kiddo needs a lot of support, and you don't have a lot of positive things to say right then, and that's okay. But what we can do instead of providing that positive praise is provide resources. So don't just say, oh, your kid's having problems with this or struggling here. Take action. Say they're struggling here or having a problem with this. This is what we can do, X, Y, and Z. Here are some community resources we can connect you with. Here is, some strategies you can try at home. Provide them with maybe like a little homework they can do with their child to supplement what you're doing in counseling. That's a really cool thing. And they, a lot of times children's behavior problems stem from, lack of attention at home. So this time, maybe they have a lot of kids or a busy job and they are not getting to spend as much one-on-one time with that student, with their child. So maybe by giving them like a little counseling homework, yes, they're practicing the skill, but they're also just getting to spend time together in a one-on-one setting away from like siblings or work or other things. So that's an idea. And then referring to community resources, just keep those families in mind who might need a little help. I mean, of course, around the holidays, we always think of things like this, like sending home turkeys or socks, or there's always something coming up. So think of those families who could use a little extra support and just provide that resource with them without them even having to ask. Because, of course, it's like a prideful thing, right? To have to ask. So just knowing like, hey, just thought you might be interested in this, or I put this information, attached to this email or in your child's folder or whatever. Just, connect them with the community resources, be that community liaison for them if you know that they would benefit from something. Okay, number 5, advocate and mediate. So you want to be on your parents' team, right? If you're in a meeting, let's say you're in like an SST meeting with the parent, the teacher, the admin, the parent may feel intimidated, and maybe you've been, working closely with this parent while you've been working with their child, and maybe their point's not coming across as clearly as they would like at the meeting. You can kind of step in and be like, oh, I think what they're trying to say, or we've been working together on this, or, help them out a little, throw them a bone. And advocate. You can also mediate. So if you, are in one of these meetings and they're talking with the teacher, you can provide some input from your end of things, right? So maybe the teacher's saying one thing about a behavior and then the parent's saying another thing, and, there's some disagreement or conflict there. You can say your point of view from working with them in the social emotional setting. So just letting them know you're on their side. And of course, our last episode was being on the teacher's side. You're on everyone's side here. It's not like you're picking sides, but we just want to make sure. I know sometimes parents go into meetings and it's like 5 faculty members and then the parent, and the 5 faculty members were in the room before the parent got in, already like having coffee and chatting and catching up. And they're all using like, educational jargon and terminology, and it may make the parent feel intimidated. And so it's just good to make them feel comfortable and let them know that they're welcome and you have their and their child's best interest in mind. Okay, and finally, number 6 is to empathize. So we did this one with the teacher episode last week too. We always want to be empathetic, right? That's a big part of counseling, a skill we're constantly trying to teach our kiddos, and we want to empathize with the parents. So I used to struggle with this. I am a parent now, but I do not have a school-age child yet. But it was like once I had my baby, I was like, ooh, now I got the parent card. Because I remember thinking when I was, working as a counselor, I was young, single, and then, it was like, oh, she doesn't even have kids. She doesn't even know. And I almost felt like I was less qualified, even though I definitely wasn't. Like I was completely qualified to be a school counselor, even if I wasn't qualified to be a parent. But sometimes when I was helping parents help their students, by recommending the social emotional homework or something like that, it kind of came across as like parenting advice, I guess. It made me feel uncomfortable a lot of times because I used to think, oh, if I had school age kids, maybe they would like take me more seriously or, think that I knew more about this in a certain area. But you want to empathize with them. Even if you're not a parent, that doesn't mean you're not less qualified. Just try to understand what it's like, for them to be a parent of a kid who's struggling in this area, or to be a parent who needs help for their child but doesn't really know exactly what to do, or to be a parent who's feeling overwhelmed, and not supported at school. So you just want to empathize with them. You can't go wrong with empathy. It just lets other people know that you care about them. It makes me bring to mind during one of my internships, the counselor I worked with, she had a really nice thing she did. It was totally empathetic, but just the smallest thing she did. And it was like a low income school, and the parent population was, largely like uneducated. Many didn't finish high school. So she said if she had a parent meeting and it was with, someone a parent who didn't have a lot of education background, she would want to make it feel as least intimidating as possible. Like I was mentioning with that meeting earlier, sometimes walking in, it can feel kind of intimidating, especially if there's, you're think of all the acronyms that we have in the education world, right? Like IEP, SST, 504, there's a million things. So it can be overwhelming just being a first year counselor, first year teacher, much less someone who's not even in the education field. They're like, what are y'all talking about? I don't even know. So we want to make people feel comfortable. But back to the internship experience, what she did is she wouldn't use her computer to take notes. She would just use a notepad and pen to take notes. Because she just thought it felt more personal. She just sit the notepad in her lap, because sometimes the computer is a big screen between the two of you. So it was just a small thing she did. No one even noticed. But it was something she did to make parents feel more welcome. And I thought that was cool. Okay, guys, I hope you feel prepared to be a team player when it comes to parents. I would love to know how you're a team player with parents. Feel free to send me a message or tag me on Instagram at Bright Futures Counseling. And I'll talk to you guys next week, where we'll talk about how you can be a team player with your admin.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.